Well,
anyway.
it's confusion.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright.
Hey, this is...
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this lifestyle radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
Who, me? You want me to get started already? Come on now.
You go
Hey,
right
everybody.
ahead, buddy.
Al's still talking. He just wants to talk. Do you want to talk?
No, you go ahead, buddy. It's your show.
You can talk because we love you. Al Rapp, everybody, produces this show. The Higher Estate. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this awesome special edition of the Higher Estate. My name is Dr. Ira Price. I'm joined today by some really cool people, some really awesome friends, family, in fact. First, we have Tyler sitting over here. He'll be co-hosting with me today. So,
hello.
What's up? You all right?
I'm doing good. Sore back, but that's about it.
You were sick this week?
Yeah, I was sick on Sunday and Monday. Had the flu. That's why my back's sore. Was throwing up so hard, my back threw out.
Really?
Still there.
Yeah.
Did you stop using cannabis?
I didn't use cannabis for those 2 days because I wasn't capable of using it. Couldn't even vaporize.
I never even stopped. I never stopped. I've been using my Shatterizer the whole time.
So, we got Tyler who's been sick, we got me who's been sick, and we have Al Rapp who's sick, sitting at home sick, and we're awesome lucky that he can produce this from the comfort of his own house or wherever he is. Maybe he's in a studio. I don't know. He's not here.
No, I'm not there.
So we miss you.
Oh,
come back here soon.
Okay.
And then and then we have we have our first guest who's here today, and he's an awesome human, and we're gonna talk a lot with him, and he's family. His name is Demetry Furman. Hey, hello. And can you hear us all the way over there?
I can.
Here, I know. I meant the other way. Here, let's put this closer to you.
Thanks.
And we're gonna talk to Dima about he's a Canadian military vet, and we're gonna get his story because he experienced some injustice. And then we're going to talk to Jack Lloyd as well.
Awesome. I love Jack.
Yeah. I mean, if he ever answers his phone, that guy's kind of busy.
Yeah.
But
busy
first,
boy.
let's get a couple things out of the way here. There's some news that you've all probably heard by now, read it on the Newswire, on the Canadian Newswire. It's been out for, I guess, since Monday. Epic, Evergreen Pacific Insurance Corporation, has closed the deal and purchased the majority of shares in Synergy Health Services, which means they now are running the show here. I mean, nothing really changes. The truth is, I'm the medical director. Nothing changes for our patients, except that they're going to get enhanced benefits packages that they're going to be able to be a part of. So, and that's going to be rolled out over time. Initially, we're going to start off with coverage of cannabis for patients who are looking for coverage. But then there's also we have this whole ecosystem. Basically, I look at it like CAA. We have a not-for-profit organization called AHOC that takes over the front space here, and where we have our exploration center, which Tyler's going to be running here out of Hamilton or Burlington, depending on which one he decides to stay around in. AHOC is the Alternative Health Association of Canada, and it's a not-for-profit. When you become a member of it, which is free, then you have access to all the benefits, and you also have access to Buy Well Plus, which is an online e-commerce space, and you get to join that for free as well, where you have access to all these natural health products, different services, and that's where you'll also be able to. It'll be a whole highway to purchase your cannabis for medical purposes and have coverage and benefits for all that kind of stuff. So it's a really awesome adventure. I'm really excited for the future. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to, I do. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be expanding. So stay tuned to listen to, and listen for more, updates as they come. Also, so what else? The Lyft Awards are coming up. There's 2 days left to vote. Hold on. I'm taking a drink of kombucha. See, I'm sick, so I got to drink a lot. Not alcohol. I wonder, though. Anyway, so the the Lift Awards are coming up at the end of November. But there's 2 days left. Yeah?
2 days to vote. Go vote for Synergy Health Services as the best clinic in Ontario, and go vote for Ira himself as well.
I'm not on there.
You're on there, are you not?
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe that was a different award then.
Yeah,
you
it
were
was.
being nominated for
Right,
something.
that was for Hamilton.
Yeah. I see. Go vote for that one too.
I think that one's done.
Oh, maybe not.
I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, at the end of the day, we do what we do, and we don't do it for the votes. We do it for the people. What else do we have? Anything else happen in the news this week? We had a mayoral. Well,
It sounds sexual. Mayoral.
mayoral. It does. Who won Hamilton? I guess.
I have no idea.
Freddie Eisenberger. So I'm pretty sure he did.
I know John Tory went again in Toronto.
Yeah, but I think because people really wanted that LRT here, I'm not into it that much. It's going to just call what Dima? What do you got to say about the mayors of this place?
Don't know. I haven't been here.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, so yeah, no, I think that's who won our place, and then Patrick Brown won Brampton, which is great as well. So. It's a whole lot happening here. LRT's happening. That was good because that's why he was put in. Mm-hmm. I think that's why he won again. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's all I really got to say about that. I want to introduce everybody to Demetry Furman. Demetry and I go back to 2002 when I first moved to Hamilton from Toronto. When I started medical school, it was 2001, 2002, something like that. Anyway, I was, I had trained martial arts pretty much my whole life. And then there was one style that I always wanted to train. It's not even a style, it's more of a life. And out of and it was called Sistema, which is a Russian martial art. And when because I had some friends in Toronto that trained it with Vladimir Vasiliev, and when he came back, late 80s, I guess, when he came here. Was it late 80s?
Early 90s.
Early 90s that he came? At the time, we were training with, what was that? Moni Isaac at the Jewish Community Center, JCC in Toronto, and we were this Israeli martial art thing. At least that's what he called it.
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga. This was back mid 80s. I don't even think it was called Krav Maga yet. But I'd always trained all these different styles. And then there was one style I really wanted to train because it's just insane. It's an amazing style. It's actually a very fluid style of training, and it has some basic concepts, and the rest you sort of learn as you go. And it's not just a matter of self-defense, but it's also a full life. And it's a great workout, and the people are amazing, and somewhat psychotic, but really amazing people. When there's people that feel really bad when they hurt you, and they sort of make this mean face. The Sistema it's this Russian style, and it's all done with a smile. So your opponent, it's not even an opponent. I don't know what it is. It's like a nobody. It's like a fly on the ground, and you do it with a smile. So you're killing people with smiles on it. It's a very psychotic way of training. I guess because in Russia you have billions of people. You can afford to lose a few. You win some, you lose some. It's okay. No one really cares. You move on. It's it's funny. Dima, you could comment on this. I haven't even got to how this relates yet, but I will. The difference. The difference between Krav Maga and Sistema is they're totally opposite with the same outcome. When you look at the different places that these two martial arts were invented, let's say one was Israel and one is Russia, you have to look at the environment. So Krav Maga is a very overwhelm, don't let up, dead. Right? And if you look at it, you've got 5 million people surrounded by 500 million people who just want you dead. So you got to overwhelm. Mm-hmm. Let's look at Russia, on the other hand. You have 500 million people. If you're to lose a few, it's okay. Sometimes you win. Sometimes everything you do is with a smile. It's okay. You can, and you don't have to be so intense, and you can be soft, and you do it when no one's looking, and you don't know how you ended up on the ground. You don't.
As Vladimir used to say, what does it matter if you know how to fight? I'm going to hate you from behind.
Yeah, so it doesn't it's interesting. So it's the style was totally different. Anyways, so it was always a style that I wanted to train. It's very fluid. I kind of, look at it like if you can think of combat Tai Chi meets Aikido.
Wow.
With a little bit of drunken monkey in there, a little bit jiu-jitsu, a little bit of everything put together. That's sort of what it looks like. And if you can use your arms like whips, you're good.
I studied old school bouncer in Toronto. I smiled at you when I threw you out the door.
Grab and throw. Grab and throw.
Yeah.
I studied the grab and throw, take it and go.
Yeah.
So let me go back to 2002. I show up and I'm actually go to synagogue. Of course, back then it was my religious days. And lo and behold, in the gym of all places of this synagogue, they had a school in the back. On Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. We even trained 3 times a week. I can't even remember what days they were anymore. Maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know. It was 3 times a week. Go figure. I show up. And they're teaching Systema. Like, of all places in the world, this small place of Hamilton, which I knew nothing about, has a Systema class. And who's instructing the class? None other than Demetry Furman. So Dima was my instructor for the first decade that I studied. I don't know. I was there till, let's say, 2008 at least. Is it maybe 2008, 2009? How long did we?
8.
2000. I mean, eventually we started training and teaching, and we were doing it in different locations. But we were in the Jewish school thing, and it was great because you'd see a bunch of hooligans hanging outside, ready to come in, and we would throw each other downstairs. We were doing we'd do some weird
funny,
training.
Ira, because I did community service at the JCC at Bathurst and Bloor, and I saw a lot of guys coming in and doing that shit in the 80s.
Yeah, so we were so I was training there 3 times a week for years, and Systema became a big part of my life. Demetri and I became very close and good friends, and then he took off to join the military. He joined the military. I don't know, somewhere around that time.
2007.
2000. But you came back even after that. I remember because we weren't training. We stopped training in the Jewish school place. Eventually, we went. The place right after that was in Burlington at that Taekwondo person. I'm the national champion of Taekwondo. Remember that?
Yeah.
Anyway, not to knock Taekwondo. I mean, they've got great kicks, great legs, quick feet, all that business.
You talking about Jong Park?
No, not John. Actually, Naz, my wife, trained there at John Park. She got her 2nd degree black belt there.
Yeah, cool.
When she was a youngin. No, he's up in Hamilton. This was a place in Burlington. Doesn't matter. Anyways, point being, this guy joined the military. He came back, was training still a little bit, and then, I don't know, did some artillery, like Gonzo. The guy took off special, who knows what he was doing. And then all of a sudden, I've been listening to actually a friend of ours. Every so often I inquire, how's Dima doing? And all of a sudden I stop hearing any news, and then I get sent a news article. And it was in the Globe and Mail. And that's what we're here to chat about today. We're not going to talk about it, we're going to stick to the story. I think it's important that we talk about facts, and we don't talk about anything around that. And we talk about how, one, not only is a military vet, but how there is still such stigma and bias around cannabis, and not just in Canada, but around the world and in the United States. And we're not here to point fingers and blame countries and blame it. We're looking for solutions.
Yes.
And if we can help in any way, because Demetri has a wife who's in the United States, and he's gonna get back there. But if we can help, what's the word I'm looking for, Tyler? Not justify, help.
Facilitate.
Facilitate's a good word. Facilitate discussion meaningful discussion on what change could happen and needs to happen, so that stigma and education around that, so that we can help people like Demetry. And I'm sure he's not the only person. This happens all the time. But this time it's a little special because he's a military veteran.
I was going to say, yeah.
Instead of giving him medals, we're sticking people in jail. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
It doesn't make sense to
Demetry,
me.
welcome to the Higher Estate podcast.
Ira, thank you very much. The irony of that, of your story about how we met, when I was first incarcerated by ICE, and ICE stands for Immigration Custom Enforcement. When I was first incarcerated by ICE, the gentleman, after processing me in, came back into my cell, and we had a conversation of about 20 minutes about Sistema. He really had a lot of questions and wanted to know quite a bit about it. And so we had at least a 20-minute discussion, and it wasn't a discussion between an official of ICE and a detainee. It was a discussion of a couple of peers, because he was also a martial artist and heavily involved in that. So it's kind of ironic. But
it's interesting because you are one of the top martial artists when it comes to Sistema in the world.
Not anymore, no.
Well, you were.
Yeah, there's been a few people, more than a few people, who have gone beyond what I could have imagined of attaining. But that's evolution, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I agree. That's what happens.
During my time,
you're an old man now.
Yeah, I say this quite often. I'm a broken little old man.
Well, you did. You just showed me photos of you training last year.
Yeah, and as early as 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I was heavily involved in training, trying to get back into competition. But yeah.
And so, did you compete last year?
In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, 2 of them, yeah.
How'd that go? Come on, how'd it go?
One I placed 3rd, and one I won, I think, if I remember correctly.
Really?
So anyway.
So you went from Sistema over to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or you were already?
Yeah, but, honestly, there were the areas that I had lived in. They had no Sistema schools, and it's not that I stopped training Sistema completely. I actually had a number of private clients and a number of people who, after they discovered who I was, come to me to train Sistema specifically.
So let me ask you a question, because we go through this all the time. We're going to eventually get to why you're here, but this is more interesting for me now. I mean, it's all very interesting.
Okay.
Let's talk Sistema. So people talk about Sistema because you can see a lot of soft Sistema training. It looks like they don't know really what they're doing. We never trained like that. No. And you go to Vlad's school, you're getting hit hard. But let's talk about things like Sistema versus you can't really compare them. But I get a lot of Jits guys coming in saying,
it's 2 completely different styles and mindsets, and ultimately what determines how the training is going to go is to what end, to what purpose you're training. If you're training for competition, it's one form, one way of version of training. Sistema has no competition. There is no way of testing it. In essence, it's just a different way of training. It's a different mindset. Sistema, like you kept saying, it's a lifestyle. It's not a style. It is a lifestyle.
Right.
It did help me in many situations, and going as far back as Afghanistan, it allowed me to, what I'm going to say, deal with a few situations that I might have not have been managed to deal with as well as I did. There's one particular moment that comes to mind where we were being shot at, and I got caught in the middle of a road, and bullets went flying, and I froze. In my mind's eye, I had hit the ground, and I was, trying to become a groundhog, trying to go deep into the dirt to avoid being shot. In the reality of the situation, I was standing. I managed to kneel down, but I was kneeling in the middle of a road, wide open, and just breathing. And that's the only reason why I managed to keep my my composure, I guess. And I was able to effectively deal with the threat. Now, that being said, somebody afterwards walks up to me and goes, "Oh, you're what he said, you're like Terminator. You're fearless." I giggled and didn't reply. I just walked away. But what I didn't want him to realize or know is that I practically peed myself. And the only reason I didn't pee myself is because Sistema, it reminded me to stay relaxed, just keep breathing, move, and keep your form. And
yeah, those are the principles.
Yeah, those are the principles. And I was able to breathe, and that kept my mind in the situation, and the training kicked in, and I did what I was trained to do. But had not been for that previous 10 years of Sistema training, I don't think any of my military training would have helped me deal with the situation that I had dealt with the way it happened, or the way I did deal with it.
Do you think for military vets now that are suffering from things like PTSD and, you come back and, I mean, even the other day you told me, you tell me a story, you can stare at somebody and just be like, I'm going to snap your jaw right now, and like, or I'm not. And that restraint and the, the principles that you mentioned, breathe, relax, move, and maintain form.
Yep.
I remember one other one, which was evade contact without losing contact, but that was not a print. It was just a thing.
Yeah.
I remember that anyway. So, but keeping those principles, do you think that, vets coming back now from theater or from Afghanistan, from any war, wherever they are, any military veteran around the world, do you think Sistema could be helpful for them?
Absolutely. And honestly, any type of physical activity will be helpful for them. It happened to me also when I first came back. I became sedentary, and I locked myself into my room, and not that I was doing anything other than staring at the four walls at any given time, but yeah, movement of any kind will help everyone. It doesn't even matter, whether you experience combat or whether. The point being is that reintegration back into society after leaving the military service, you feel completely cast alone, cast aside and adrift. God, my head's getting ahead of me.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, I don't know what the fuck it means. I'm going to just start putting some money in this damn box. Okay.
Like I said, let me just prepay $10 and I'll cover my first half hour. But what I'm going to say, it's not just Sistema, it's any kind of physical activity. I found that I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because grappling has always been my first love. And I found that helped me. And I found that I also, while I was still in the military after Afghanistan, I did the military Ironman, and then I proceeded to have 4 MMA fights. I don't believe I actually got...
And you weren't, by the way, 24 years old when you were doing this.
No, I was in my 40s.
Yeah, so if you, by the way, Demetry's not a young man it looks like a young man, but the dude's in his mid-40s.
47.
Yeah,
so, anyway,
you're talking about a guy that's still competing against 25-year-olds.
Yeah, it was cathartic for me, that's why I say everyone should do something. It was cathartic, and while I don't remember exactly how much I weighed after Afghanistan, but I know that in order to get to my competition weight, I had some very heavy or very long and arduous weight cuts. But the point being is that I finally got out of my room, I finally got active, and all the medications I was on didn't help, but finally got off the medications, and that was my therapy, and that was my way of getting through everything, and I like to say my center has always been martial arts in whatever stage, whatever part of my life I was involved in.
So you joined the military 2007.
Well, I joined the reserves in 2005, and that's my second time in the reserves. But anyway, first time was in 89, 90. Second time I joined the reserves in 2005, and that was while I was still trying to get my second degree. After I finished university at York, I managed. Then I applied for a component transfer from the reserves to Reg Force. Got in finally in 2007, and November 2007, and then I finally went in. Got sent off to Gagetown for CAP and trades training, my artillery officer training. All the stuff like that. And that's why I was gone for almost 2 years.
You were gone for a while. And when did you go to Afghanistan?
2009.
Wow. Okay. And so you come back so you go to Afghanistan, see a whole bunch of, it's horrible, obviously. And you come back, and what happened? What happened between then and now you were living in the U.S.? You were here in Canada.
I was here
Let's
in
do that.
Yeah, exactly. I met my wife during during workup training. We crossed paths. It was just completely incidental. And then after Afghanistan, I had was starting to experience some serious issues, and I completely by accident came across this military support group we call it at that time was MMA, now it's MMI, Military Minds Incorporated. Started by this guy named Chris Dupuis of the 3RCR. And
yeah, we know him. I think he started. That's the guy out.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, we know Chris.
So I came across a picture of his, and the irony is that it was a picture I took of my fire team partner asleep with using a manhole cover as a pillow.
And he used photo?
He used that photo. Yeah, I have no idea how that photo made it to him. All I know is I took that picture because my boot is by my fire team's partner, and I was just sitting there. And my fire team partner at this time, he was a techie, and this was kind of, I guess, the first introduction of I'm going to say cell phone cameras and the first smartphones. And so I remember we were on our way to an exercise. It was 5 a.m. We're just waiting to get loaded up onto vehicles, and he fell asleep with his head on a manhole cover. So I picked up his digital camera / cell phone, and I took a picture of him sleeping on there because I thought it was just funny. And that's it.
I'm gonna break in for a second. If you don't mind.
No idea how
Did he claim it? He didn't claim it.
I don't know. I have no idea. But all I know is that one day I'm sitting at my computer and this picture comes across a news feed and it says infantry, where everything can be used as a pillow. So I emailed this guy and this website. I email him. I'm like, hey, that's a picture I took. That's a funny caption, a great meme, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And
I didn't know what the word meme meant until my wife told me like a month ago. What the fuck is
I pronounced it. I've been pronouncing it wrong ever since it came out.
My kid has corrected me on that. I'm going to have to break in for a sec because Jack is ready for a call.
Hold, but I'm not ready for. Wait, is he there now? Did you call him?
Yeah, he said call him whenever you're ready.
No, I'm not. Yep. We'll call him in a bit. I'd like to still. We're gonna get. We got lots to talk about. I'll call Jack when we're ready. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
So where was I? Okay. So that's. So I get into.
Jack's gonna have some answers for us later.
Right.
Yeah.
So I get into this. I start talking with Chris, and Chris invites me into this closed group, and this group has been a lifesaver at times, and. My wife was a member of this group, and she has a very unique story how she got into there as well. But all she said to me was, "Hey, hello, how are you?"
That's all they need to say.
Yeah, that's all they need to say.
Down.
And I clicked on her picture. I'm like, wait a second, I know you.
Oh, really?
And so I answer her, and I'm like, they don't mean to sound corny, but haven't we met before?
Really?
Like, this is not a pickup line. She goes, oh, that's a hug. Oh. And I said, oh, I just groped your butt.
Oh, that's... oh, jeez. We don't need to know anymore about that.
So that's how we
Trump.
started.
Yeah, exactly. So you
fast forward to 2014. I'm on my way out. This is March 2014.
Where are you now?
I'm still. I'm back in Petawawa. I'm medically released, and so I contacted my wife and I said, "Hey, ready or not, here I come."
Wow.
And so I applied, got myself a permission to enter the U.S. Entered the U.S. For the third time on this thing called a humanitarian parole waiver. And I told them I was planning on staying and applying for my green card. And, they let me in. I got in. We got married in September 14th, 2014. And
thought everything was going fine.
Yeah, started my application. Everything was going copacetic, hunky-dory, and whatever.
So so everything's going all right. 2014, you get married. They say you've been into the States. It's not like they don't know who you are now.
Correct.
No issue.
I'm following all rules, all regulations, all
the wife saying, "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." No, wait, no. Is that good? Are we good? We good? Don't worry. Is that your wife? I want to know what she's saying. Can we hear? No, don't say it. So your 2000. Just to let you know what's happening, Dima's getting text by his wife and saying, "Shut up, shut up, shut up."
Yes,
So-
honey, you're right. We were seeing each other long before I moved to the U.S.
Oh, is that what she just said? Can you call in, please? Oh, that would be amazing. I can't wait to hear it. Oh, listen, I'm sure she's an amazing human. Okay.
She is. Honestly, put up with me. She is.
Look at, but she had to correct that one little thing, huh?
We were seeing each other. We started seeing each other in 2012.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
And I had been to the U.S. a number of times, and she had been. We were seeing each other practically every other weekend as best we could, meeting in the middle somewhere.
Yeah,
you know.
of course.
Yeah, it was long distance relationship, which was not easy.
No, it's tough.
Yeah,
really tough.
Yeah, and now like the irony of it all is like I have everything I ever wanted, and I can't have it. If you know what I mean. And now it's back to that long distance relationship BS kind of, and now I have to. It's the fight's back on. I want to go back to my life. I want to go back to my wife.
We're gonna get that happening.
Yeah.
So we want to know what happened though, and then we're gonna call Jack.
Okay.
So it's 2015 now, 14, 15. You're doing your thing. You know, you guys are enjoying your life over there. I've never met her. I guess I should someday.
Yeah, you will.
Does she beat your ass? I'd love to know that.
What's that?
Does she beat your ass? Just like I believe she's taken. Has she ever taken a gun out at you or something like that? Maybe. Huh?
I will not. You know what's that? I plead the fifth.
Yeah, or you can do that over there. We don't have a fifth here. You can't plead anything in Canada. Everything is allowed to be known.
Oh, right.
We don't have a Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, we do have a spousal privilege, though. So
Oh, okay, fine.
I'm claiming spousal privilege.
Oh, us divorce guys know about these things. Fine, damn it. But we don't have a fifth here. We only have that in the U.S. There's only that in the U.S. Anyway, okay, so what happened? So you were getting your card. Tell us, take me through the story. It's just insane. It's in the Globe and Mail. I mean, you can read this. It's not like it's.
I'll give you
but I want to know what from your side. What happened?
So for my side, we kept on getting letters of denial for my green card because there wasn't a sponsorship. They kept on saying there wasn't enough assets, or that I had to find a co-sponsor, that my wife didn't qualify because of the amount of children in the household and the household itself. There's a certain level of level that the household has to bring in order for them to sponsor me.
What are we to bring in? What like
income,
cookies?
A level of income.
Okay, that's ridiculous. Okay.
Yeah. So we kept getting letters of denial because they weren't recognizing Canadian income. The issue was that actually we own the house in the U.S. and we had more than enough assets.
They wouldn't recognize your Canadian income because they just don't like us here because our income doesn't count.
It's their right to do
It's
that.
true. Well, it doesn't. I mean,
anyway,
it's like
they
paper they wipe their ass.
They didn't
with
recognize anything.
just put some money in the little charity box.
It came down to they wouldn't recognize the assets we had in the U.S. We had more than enough. We have more than sufficient assets, but
yeah.
They kept on denying based on that, and the only thing they kept saying to us, and 3 different times, was you need a joint sponsor, you need a co-sponsor, you need a sponsor who meets the minimum requirement for income for the household.
Okay.
Now, we were seeking advice from everybody, our lawyer, the USCIS themselves, and anyone who knew anything about this, and we kept getting the same answer.
But you guys are military. It doesn't make sense to me. They don't give a shit? Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Why? How do people not care?
Well, because that's the way the law works. And immigration law is administrative law. It's not judicial law.
Right.
And this is something I learned the hard way.
Okay.
So, anyway, our file was a bunch of mistakes. Like, honestly, simple, silly mistakes. Like, our file we'd get a letter saying back, you didn't sign this page. Well, I keep records of everything and copies of everything. I look at my version of that page, and it's signed. I'm like, okay, so resend refile the whole thing. Then they send us a letter, this page is missing. I look at my file, and that page is not missing. I don't know why. Eventually, I figured out, they told me themselves, well, we scan documents electronically, and sometimes the pages stick together. So because 2 pages stuck together, they denied me, and I had to refile. And each time it's cost.
And they know you're military.
Well,
they know all this stuff.
Well, this is the point. I don't know what they know, other than when my wife.
What happened? Let's fast forward to the car.
The reason I'm bringing this up, all of this, is because it does play a significant role in the background. So our file, after being lost and found twice, finally gets transferred to the National Visa Center.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm now being treated as an applicant from outside of the U.S. versus an applicant who is inside the U.S. just trying to change his status. But I am physically inside the U.S. They know this. They have my address as in the U.S. I'm not hiding. So I buy a vehicle, and I've done this, bought a number of vehicles in the U.S., and I'm following the law, and I go to what they call the BMV, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, to register it as my ownership. And I've done this in the past. So I go in this time, and I hand over all the necessary documentation, which includes my passport, which includes a letter of action, which
So I asked you this. You gave them your passport.
You have to. Well, I didn't to get the vehicle.
They
register. They need to see the passport. So I hand over all my immigration documentation and things like that, and the lady starts looking at it, and she goes, well, I have to call Columbus, which is the head office. I said, okay, fine, call Columbus. She calls Columbus and comes back to me, and she hands me a receipt for all the documentation rather than all my documentation. And she says to me, there's been an issue with some of your documents. We have to resolve this. So I'm going to hold on to your documents. Here's the receipt that I have them. Come back. You can come back in a little while. I'll call you when everything's ready and done. You can come back, get them. I'll look. Okay.
She took your passport.
Took my passport. Took my immigration letters. Took my.
She took everything.
She had the registration, the title to the vehicle. She took it.
You couldn't ask. Yeah. Okay.
Ontario government is calling me. I can't take this right now.
Oh, do you want to?
No.
We don't take it on there. We just.
I'm getting a call from the Ontario government.
Do you? They're not listening to this, so don't worry.
Oh, I'm gonna decline it right now.
Okay. All right. So go on.
Okay. So she tells me to go home. That they'll call me when everything's ready. I said okay.
I think you just missed the call. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah, there's the call. You're welcome. You're welcome back. You're welcome back, Connor. Okay, go. Connor.
So,
yeah.
I go. She tells me to come back. I go home. Fast forward 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. I get a phone call.
What month is this? No. August
through July.
Okay. Yeah.
Through July. So I'm like, okay. I get a call August 1st, or no, just before August 1st, something like 3 days prior or something.
Just close to August. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Just close to August. And basically they're saying to me that the man on the other line, on the end of the line, says, come by the BMV, pick up your title. Everything's done. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks very much.
Wow.
And hang up. Oh, and he also tells me, yeah, come by. I said, well,
what time?
Yeah, I asked, just drop in any time. He goes, if you want to come like Wednesday morning, 8:30 in the morning, I'll be in my office type of thing. I'm like, all right,
Sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. And ironically,
I'd show up.
Yeah. They have my title. They have my passport.
You got all your stuff, yeah.
And
this is just for a car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is
for
ridiculous.
A car. I'm like,
okay.
Whatever, I'll show up. I'll pick it up. So that Wednesday morning, wife and I get in the car, and we drive down to the BMV, and we're going shopping afterwards. And she just entered a bunch of stuff into the Medina County Fair, and she won a bunch of awards for all her.
Do you have pigs and chickens?
She wants pigs, but we have chickens.
What? Really?
Anyway.
Is this we were talking about with Misha? You have chickens? Like you raise chickens? In a farm? You live on a farm?
No, it's not a farm, but they're pets, yes.
Sorry, you have pet chickens?
My wife.
What do you do with chickens as pets?
You get eggs, man.
Okay, Ira.
Oh, that's
you
a
get
good
eggs
idea.
every morning.
Dr.
My aunt
Price.
has like 5.
What? Okay.
I walk 8:30 in the morning.
Okay, fine. Let's go back to this. I want to talk about chickens later, though. I'm writing that down to remind myself. Chickens. Okay.
What did I get myself
I walked
into?
The Medina County office.
Medina. What is that?
Yeah.
Okay, you walk into the office. Okay, we'll stay on track. Yeah.
Right. And this guy looks at me and he says, "Oh, Mr. Furman." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, come on, follow me into my office."
Okay.
And I follow him into the office, and as I walk in, there are no less than 5 agents standing there.
What?
5 ICE agents, all of them, so one of them puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "You know why you're here?" Or, you know why we're here? I'm looking at him like,
No.
"Who the hell are you?" And no.
Right.
And he says, "You're under arrest and for immigration violations." And I'm like, "Wait a second, no. How's that?" I said, "I have an open immigration case. I just spoke with the chief of immigration in Washington, D.C. less than 2 weeks ago, who told me that I'm not accruing any negative time and that there's no issues. My file's ongoing.
Right.
There's nothing to worry about." So they're like, "No, you're being detained and searched me, handcuffed me, led me out of."
I don't understand. They just out of the blue.
Yeah. So
they led you out. So continue.
They led me out.
Yeah.
Threw me into the back of an SUV.
What?
Drove me out of the parking lot to another parking lot. Threw me into another SUV and drove me to their detention center in Cleveland. The head office or whatever their headquarters in Brooklyn Heights, Cleveland. And so from there, that afternoon, that same agent who had arrested me came in, had a 20-minute conversation with me about Sistema. Then from there, that evening I was moved to Geauga County Jail, where I was kept for the first 3 days in a solitary isolation confinement observation cell. However, they call them intake cells, but they're literally isolation cells. You're by yourself under a spotlight 24/7. They kept me there for 3 days, interviewed me 3 different times. The reason they arrested me was due to a marijuana conviction dating back to 1992 that was pardoned.
That doesn't make any sense.
In Canada or the U.S.?
In Canada.
Okay.
My conviction happened in Canada, and I was pardoned by Canada, and hence why I was able to join the military. But the U.S. does not recognize Canadian pardons. The bit of it, kind of, in my opinion, it's a bit of a hypocrisy where the U.S. recognizes the Canadian judicial system to do its job according to law, judiciously, properly, when convicted me, but it does not recognize the same judicial system in having done its job properly by rules, by law.
How did they even know? Like, what the hell would any, like, you've been in and out of the U.S. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times,
dozens of times.
Right. You have
and the car flags you.
You have a green passport.
Well, that was during the military
when you
time.
were
NATO passport. Right.
When you're in the military, everything is fine. They know you're a veteran. They know you're getting veteran. The VAC is helping you in the U.S. You're getting veteran stuff, whatever. And then all of a sudden, poof.
Yeah, exactly.
Non-veteran stuff.
Non-veteran stuff. So anyway, it comes down to this. U.S. as a sovereign state has the right to choose what it
Yeah, but why you?
Why me? I'm not special.
Do you think they would do this?
I don't rate the screw Furman factor.
Something obviously threw up a red flag somewhere, but it's buying a car is a red flag in the States. Come on now.
Well, hold on a second. What threw up the red flag was when she contacted Columbus in regards to my immigration papers. Immigration papers automatically get referred to USCIS, and USCIS is an automatic referral to ICE.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's one and the same. It's not one and the same organization, but USCIS is the administrative arm of the whole immigration process, and ICE is just another. It's the police force of immigration.
So how did that play a factor on you having already come back from? You've already been over in Afghanistan. You're already in the military. You're already dealing with all this crap that you come back with, and then all of a sudden, you're thrown in jail for how long?
77 days.
You're in jail for 77 days for a cannabis possession conviction that you didn't even possess.
Nah, it was,
I know, I got it. And you can, I mean, if we don't have to talk about that if you don't want to. Okay, and then you were pardoned. So what happened?
Yes, they decided that they were going to extradite me, and they classified me as what is referred to as an aggravated felon who has committed a crime of moral turpitude. Yeah, no, just hold on. That crime of moral turpitude was a conspiracy to traffic in a controlled substance, to wit, marijuana.
Less than an ounce.
Less than an ounce, yes, contravening the Narcotic Traffic Control Act or something like that.
So you are being looked at as a drug smuggler.
A drug trafficker, yes. Yeah. I am classified as a drug trafficker.
But it wasn't even you.
No, it wasn't even me.
You just happened to be around.
Yeah, exactly. So here's this.
You didn't inhale.
I'm going to tell you this. So the short version of it is this: I gave a ride to a guy from point A to point B. During that drive, he asked me to pull into a gas station, a Husky, and I waited in the car. He went inside, came back out with another guy. I didn't know at this time this other guy was an RCMP undercover narcotics agent. This was Canada's war on drugs, and so he was the guy that I was giving a ride to. He was an associate, a friend of a friend, who called me and asked me to give him a drive from point A to point B. And at that time, this was before cell phone days, and this was winter, and I thought he was a nice guy and whatever, and I just, all right, you want a ride? I'll give you a ride. I got no issues with that. So driving from point A to point B, we pull into this Husky. He goes inside, comes back out with this undercover cop. They get into my car. The guy I was giving a ride to sells a bag of backyard cheap weed to the undercover cop. The undercover cop grabs it, puts it in his pocket, throws the money onto my shoulder. I shrug my shoulder. Money falls down. The cop, the guy I was giving a ride to, picks the money up, puts it into his pocket, and then cop gets out, walks around my window, taps on my window. I roll it down. He says, "Hey, do you know where I can buy some coke?" I looked at him. No, rolled up my window. Goodbye. And then I looked at the guy I was giving a ride to. I'm like, what the hell was that about? He goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's all cool." All right. So I continued on. We drive. I drop him off where I dropped him off, and life went on. 3 to 4 months later, I get a phone call. You going to come turn yourself in, or are we going to come to your work to pick you up? I'm like, okay, what is this about? This is the Constable so-and-so with the RCMP Drug Narcotics Squad, and we have a warrant for your arrest for drug trafficking. All right, what are you talking about? So I said, I'll go turn myself in. I contact the lawyer. Lawyer says, turn yourself in at the RCMP headquarters there in Saskatoon, and they'll let you out that afternoon. I said, all right, no problem. I go turn myself in. I ask they book me in, process me, ask me a bunch of questions, to which my standard answer was, I don't know, because I didn't know. They released me on my own reconnaissance. Go on. Fast forward a year where, through all the legal proceedings, almost a year later, we finally make it to trial. And before trial, my lawyer comes to me and says, prosecution and I reached an agreement, a deal. The deal would be an $80 fine and a year peace bond. I'm like, yeah, what did I know? I'm like, sounds good to me, possession. It would have been $80 fine, possession, not trafficking, not conspiracy, and a year peace bond. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll take it. Just make it go away. Thank you very much. And so get into the courtroom. Judge asks how I plead. Guilty. Asks for sentencing recommendation. Prosecutor says, we've reached an agreement. $80 fine, a year peace bond, on a charge of possession. Judge says, that's too lenient. I'm going to set that aside. It's because of guys like you that my daughter's a drug addict, and maxes me. Guilty, slams before I have a chance to say what just happened, I'm let out in handcuffs.
It's crazy.
And that's it. So I spend
so nuts.
I spend 28 days. When I get to the jail, they interview me, and I tell them, I'm just a farm boy, grew up on a farm. And I'm like, oh, great, we got a job for you. You want to work? I'm like, yeah, better than sitting in here. I'll go work. So they sent me to an equestrian ranch, and I fed horses, cleaned stalls, cleaned horses, everything. Frostbite and I were
then
friends.
They pardoned this.
Right. So hold on. I'll get to there.
Okay.
So, 28 days later, I'm going to bed. I'm ready to go to bed. I get called in for an interview. I have no idea what this is about, but they ask me a few questions. I answer the questions, and then I go away. 29th day, I wake up in the morning thinking I'm getting ready to go to work, and they tell me grab all my stuff and kick me out the door and send me on my way. 3 more months later, I'm finished with parole, and this goes away. And
right.
Fast forward, I don't know how many years exactly.
2002.
Right, but I believe
a bunch of years.
A
You're
bunch
now
of
in
years.
Hamilton.
Right. I was allowed to apply for a pardon. So as soon as I was allowed to apply, I applied for a pardon. The pardon came through on the first application. Everything was fine. It was expunged, or not. It wasn't expunged. That's an American term. I was pardoned. It was sealed and went away. Like
Done.
It never happened.
Right.
Life went on.
And then all of this came back
And
when you
all
moved
this
to the
came
States
back.
because the U.S. didn't
Exactly.
recognize it.
Now,
the
Canada
Canadian
and
military liked it. Not a problem for the Canadian military.
No, because the Canadian military does not hold a conviction against you for which you've not been pardoned.
Right.
So the question on the application process, the question is straightforward. Have you been convicted of a crime for which you have not been pardoned?
Right. No.
No. The answer is no.
Right. So it shouldn't have been a problem at all. But it happens that you're a military guy. They see, you got some military stuff going down, and they wanted you. No?
Well, yeah, basically, okay. So
cannabis right now, it's such a weird time in the cannabis world. Because on one hand, the governments are all saying use it, use it, use it. On the other hand, they say don't use it, don't go near it, don't touch it. So we're at a really strange time in the world. The U.S., I'm telling you, the U.S. they're on the brink of legalizing the extraction of CBD federally. Like, they're going to be doing that. Now, as long as the Republicans are still in power, it'll never be legal. Cannabis will not be legal in federally in the United States. However, it will be federally. I mean, if the Democrats get back in, I think it'll certainly probably go down that route because most of the states have already legalized cannabis.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
not most, but the movement is going.
Majority.
Yeah,
the majority of states have already legalized it, and it's the Republicans that are keeping that from happening. But I'll tell you, they're legalizing for medical purposes. They will legalize it for medical purposes. I do believe and they're already talking about doing that. I think the federal government for medical purposes will legalize cannabis for medical purposes. I don't think that they will do it for any other reason. And CBD will just be generally legal. They're already, super close to that. What's up?
Well, any hemp extracted CBD you can ship to the United States and extract legally.
Right now.
As long as it's from hemp.
But the difference, but there's a federal and there's state law when it comes to, this is just moving away from your sec. And we're going to call, actually, you know what? If you want to try calling Jack again, that would be awesome.
I can try that.
Yeah, that would be great. But just
I'll do that right now. Keep going.
So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just learned this yesterday, is the state law around what is considered hemp and what is not considered hemp is different than the federal what's considered hemp and not hemp. So for example, if you look at something like Charlotte's Web, which is a strain that's supposedly from hemp, derived from hemp. If you grind the whole plant together, and which is what I can't remember which one it is, if it's federal law or state law that says you can use the whole plant if it comes down to less than 0.03% THC, it's considered hemp. But if you use, I think it's federal law.
That's
the federal law. So then the provincial law states that you have to take different parts of the plant and test the different parts of the plant. And if the different parts of the plant are greater than 0.03%, then it's considered cannabis.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that the plant itself that they use for Charlotte's Web, if you do it in one way, like grind it all together, then it's considered hemp. But if you take the different parts of it, maybe the cola and like all the whatever other parts, the calyx and all this stuff, and then you put it together and you do it individually, it'll come out to greater than 0.03%, in which case it's not considered.
It's just over 1%.
So I
have the lab reports on Charlotte's Web in my email.
You do, eh? So then it's not hemp.
Not when it's
here, by the way, guys. Hi, Jack.
What's that?
Hi, guys. How are ya?
Hey, Jack. Oh, I'm so glad you were able, Esquire. I'm so glad you were able to connect and get you on the phone. It's been so long that I've been trying to connect to you.
Oh, I'm absolutely pleased to be on. Thanks. Sorry that I missed it previous. It went long in court, but I'm very pleased to be here today.
Jack, first, before I want to talk, I mean, we have Dima here, Demetry Furman, the military vet who was detained in jail for 2 months, 77 days in the United States on a cannabis related charge here in Canada that was pardoned in Canada back in 2002, and they still considered him a drug dealer.
Trafficker.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
That's unbelievably crazy. What state were you in custody in?
Ohio.
I'm very sorry to hear that. That's awful.
How is there actually, before I'll get to my questions for you later, which have nothing to do with him, but have to do with what's happening in BC.
I'm going to send you the article that was just circulated.
I sent it to him. I sent Jack the article. Okay. I thought I sent it to you. Did I? Anyway.
I recall hearing about. It's been quite hectic here, but I do recall hearing about this situation.
So, is there really no reciprocation between Canada and the U.S. when it comes to pardoning stuff like this?
Well, a great many court resolutions that occur in Canada aren't recognized by the United States. So, the United States doesn't recognize discharges. They just recognize findings of guilt and findings of not guilt. So the pardon in general, it's not recognized by America.
That doesn't sound fair to me.
It's definitely not fair.
And I guess the country is able to do whatever they want, really. So is there
certainly not bound by our laws?
Wow. What did he say?
Certainly not bound by our laws.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No. Of course they're not. But I mean, it just seems so weird that we're still dealing with this cannabis. What are you finding now in the system? Is the cannabis amnesty stuff happening?
Well, not as of yet. So again, the pardons that have been made available by the Liberals are the smallest of possible steps in the right direction. So getting a pardon typically is a somewhat complicated and onerous process, and that bill basically makes it slightly less complicated and slightly less onerous. So it doesn't do much. It just means that you don't have to pay the processing fee, and they speed up the process so you can do it much more quickly. But the majority of people that would be seeking these pardons probably struggle with a host of other obstacles in their lives. So it should have been a mandatory expungement of these records. And again, the new pardons that they've made available really only affect people that have convictions for possession of cannabis in an amount under 30 grams. So it's not going to, so it's really not, they sort of parade it around as if they were really helping people out. But, it's really doing it doesn't nothing. Help as many people as they think.
Jack?
Yes.
Jack, I have a question for you.
This is Demetry, by the way. Meet Dima. Demetry, Dima. I don't know.
Hi, Jack. I was told that if I could have this record expunged, that it would alleviate my issues. Now, my question is this. Any lawyer that I've ever contacted has never heard of this being done. Post-conviction relief, aka expungement, hasn't heard of it being done in Canada. It's expungement is it is an American term. My question is simply this: how do I go about getting it done after I've had my pardon? Because whenever I inquire in regards to my conviction, my conviction in essence doesn't exist. The file does yes, the RCMP can tell me that I have been convicted once, but everything else does not exist. So do I have a route of any kind, any recourse, in order to obtain a complete expungement of my conviction?
Or do we need amnesty, cannabis amnesty that's pushing towards these things? Would he even be included in something like that?
Am I correct in understanding that they don't recognize his pardon at all?
Zero. At all.
But yet they recognize his
not.
charge.
Correct.
They recognize that a court found him guilty of something and convicted him of something.
Wow.
They don't recognize that the Canadian government has pardoned that behavior. So you're correct as well in your analysis of expungement, and you're correct in your finding that there's not a route to get an expungement in Canada. So you would have to go to court, and I am contemplating litigation of this nature in which someone like yourself who suffered irreparable harm that is grossly disproportionate to the goals of A, the pardoning legislation, and B, the criminal law itself, you would go to court and essentially sue the government over this. And that may well result in a change to the Criminal Records Act. That's the piece of legislation that is causing you this trouble. And if you were to do that in federal court, then you could get relief.
So that's the only way, is to sue the government. I'm in.
Not a bad idea.
And how much would that cost him to do, Jack?
It's a military guy. It's a military vet we're talking about, right?
Yeah, so I got no money.
He's a military. Well, we can do a GoFundMe. Like we would do a fundraiser. Dude, you're a military vet who spent time in Afghanistan. Somebody should fucking pay for that. I'll put money in.
Oh, thanks.
I think that there's going to probably be a class action dealing with this, because you're not alone, certainly.
Yeah.
So you could join your legal issues with some other people, and that would provide a great deal of cost saving. I can't give a price, but it's very much public interest litigation. So in the event that we were successful, and I think that we probably would be, you might get all of your legal fees paid for by the government if you beat them.
So if we needed to start a GoFundMe, no, we could do that because if you join a class action, which is what it sounds like I think you should do, everybody would be responsible for a certain proportion. Is that how it works, Jack?
Pretty much, yeah. We would have a representative plaintiff, and everyone else would sign on. I'm not sure if it would make the most sense to do as a class action, just because each individual is so unique. So, you know, if you were to win, the legislation would be changed for everyone, and of course you would get the remedy that you're seeking. So I would need to put a bit more thought into this before I can give a full answer.
Yeah, but if it's something that, Dima, is this something you'd be interested in doing?
Yes. I mean, he's right. It is irrevocable. Sorry. It is irrevocable damage. I mean, it comes down to I've literally served a life sentence for having been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Around cannabis, that's legal in Canada.
In Canada. I mean, literally, there's people who've committed murder who have done...
Let's just talk about cannabis. One, it was less than an ounce, so it was less than 30 grams.
Yes.
One, you weren't even doing it, which is why I was pardoned.
Yes.
And these are what they're pardoning anyways. So I don't take away murder, take away all the other things. It's legal now, and it shouldn't have never existed in the first place.
I agree with you completely. The prohibition laws on cannabis should have not have existed.
Right. So we're in that space now. So maybe what we do is, Jack, we're going to talk offline about this, because I mean, he's a military. I wonder if the military probably they probably won't pay for it. But you never know. I don't know. You got benefits from the military. We can use it for legal. But either way, we can find ways to get this funded if that's something that you'd be interested in doing. It sounds like Jack is he would have to think about this whole thing, but it sounds like it's something that is in his interest. Am I right?
I would love to do that case.
Yeah, that would be. I think we start a fundraising, and you're a military veteran, dude. Okay. We're gonna get. We have other military vets who are in the same position as you, military vets who suffer from PTSD, people who've been hanging by their necks, and cannabis has saved their lives. And I don't think this is something we should take lightly at all. And if we have somebody like Jack in our corner, that in my mind is one of the biggest advocates and top legal guys when it comes to dealing with cannabis advocacy, and I don't think we have a choice. I think it would, if we don't do it, I think we're doing more harm than if we do it. What is the worst case scenario for you? I guess the outcome. I mean, it's just going to get national attention.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I'm not enjoying the national attention. I'm a private person. I'd rather be living on my hobby farm with my wife, and raising chickens and things like that.
Right.
But if I have to be the poster child for what not to do, then I guess I will be it. And if we lead the charge and get this, I mean, if this gets me back to my wife and to my life the way I've always wanted it to be, yeah, I've gone through worse.
Right.
I'll put up with this. I'll get through it. Yes, it'll get me national attention, but no, it'll get me home.
Yeah. Would it be able to get him home if that was the case? If, let's say, he did, best case scenario, win something like this?
But when you say get him home, what does that mean?
His goal is to get back to the United States where his wife is.
Oh, maybe. The issue, I got to be a little bit cautious. So
okay.
The answer
Offline,
is maybe.
we'll
I need to know. I'm happy to have a conversation about it, but you may also need to work with an American immigration lawyer, specifically in Ohio.
Yeah, I do have a very good immigration lawyer in Ohio, and he stated the same thing, that I would have to work with a criminal lawyer here, in order to find a path to having my record be, to use, for lack of a better term, expunged.
So if your record gets expunged, do you think that will get you back to the United States?
In essence, yes.
Okay, so then that's the goal.
Yes.
I guess what we have to do is also recognize that even if it does get expunged, in worst case scenario, they still say no because they can do whatever they want.
That's true, because they have a record of this happening, and that's exactly it. If they were to run a background check, in which they have run a background check on me, they come up with 0.
Right.
I have no criminal background. But the problem is this, is that U.S. and Canada used to share, I don't know if they still do, but they shared what's on CPIC and what's on their national database as well, back and forth. They reciprocated. Hence why a lot of Americans with felony convictions can't enter the U.S. or can't enter Canada. I'm sorry. It's a reciprocal relationship, and I don't disagree with that. Hey, I'm all for legal immigration, secure borders.
Sure. You're a military guy, so yeah, I get it.
But it comes down to this, is that
it was cannabis is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it was.
And it makes no sense.
It was cannabis.
That's what we've been trying to do. It's been cannabis. So I think this is something, I mean, we heard it from Jack here. I think this is something we should do offline and we'll move forward if that's something that you're interested in, we can make that happen.
Of course, yeah.
Jack, can I ask you some other questions?
Sure.
So because it has nothing to do with Demetry, but I read in the paper, they were, remember we were working on a case. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but it was in the newspaper, so I don't see why not. I wrote an affidavit. Do you remember that? Can we chat about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they try, at least what I read from the affidavit I gave, they tried to say that I wasn't experienced.
No, the journalist, I think, maybe misunderstood. It was a motion regarding admissibility of expert testimony, and the challenge had to do largely with there's a special a civil procedure form that I had that was done. Part of it we had done it so quickly; it was a very tight deadline, as it always is with an injunction. So the journalist wrote an article that sort of misunderstood a little bit about what was going on in court. Ultimately, all of the evidence that it kind of worked against the government, the Department of Justice lawyers, because they challenged the evidence, and so I then stood up and basically argued our case by explaining what the expert witness affidavits said. So it ended up giving us essentially this is just a tactical issue, but regardless, it came in, so it's part of the judge's frame of reference for the case. What they challenged mostly, Dr. Price, works with this community, and you wrote this brilliant note saying, no, I'm not about to have patients have their cannabis shipped to me, because it's a great deal of responsibility I'd be taking on personally, and all the nurses and staff at my clinic would be taking on, and that's simply not something that I'm prepared to do as a doctor. And you know, if you can't do that, you know, a doctor that's been advocating for the cannabis community for many, many years, like how in the heck do they expect a doctor that just barely even believes cannabis is medicine? How can they expect a doctor like that to accept cannabis through the mail? So that was ultimately the core of it, and we got that argument in. So don't believe that
all right.
that article in the newspaper. I was in the middle of my arguments, and she was trying to ask. I probably should have just stopped and explained what was going on to her, but I was focused mostly on getting our stuff in. Gotcha. So I should have been friendlier and explained sort of what actually was happening in court that day to the journalist.
Yeah, no, I guess she clear. Like I read that article and I'm like, I don't understand what this argument. I didn't understand the argument. I guess first we should.
It's like it's like the most boring day in court. Like admissibility of evidence. Like only lawyers care about it. And this journalist that's in there writing this article about it, I said, like, is it a slow news day? Like this is the boring part of the case. Like,
it's funny. I find that when in court proceedings that journalists show up on the most ridiculous days. It must be the slow news days, but they never end up showing up on the days that actually matter. Mm-hmm. Sorry, yeah. Excuse me.
It was a little bit humorous, so I was like, don't you want to be here when we're making like submissions on the charter rather than sort of all these 400-year-old evidence rules?
Is there an outcome on that yet or no?
No outcome yet.
Okay. I mean, just for people who people may not know, it's about the legitimacy of dispensaries staying open for the purpose, in my mind, which is bridging the gap, which is why I think they're okay if they have proper, taking property quality assurance, and the regulation of the dispensary model makes sense because under the ACMPR, your people are waiting. Tyler's here co-hosting with me, and he'll answer this because he sits there and sees it from patient. How long does it take for patients to get their cannabis once we put a prescription through sometimes?
Personally, I've been waiting over a week for a shipment right now.
Right.
A little bit delayed because of Canada Post strike, but still, you're always waiting usually 4 days.
Yeah, 4 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, and then we're at a point where you get called into a patient who's on the last 3 days of his or her life. Well, what are they going to do? Oh, let's go apply. And I've seen this. It actually just happened here. It drives me mad. Stage 4, breast CA, breast cancer, and she just passed away recently. And I'm sitting there back and forth with a licensed producer. Can you send them their cannabis? Can you send them their cannabis? Oh, they didn't have this document signed.
There's a dispensary down the road that can help her now.
Right. Now, whether, how we regulate those is, I think, the important factor. We need to regulate them appropriately, of course, quality assurance and
educated staff.
Exactly, using even the program that Tyler and I developed. Then, it's, that's the kind of stuff that they need. But at least that's the case that's being challenged. Am I right? Sort of? Maybe I'm wrong.
Sorry. It's the right for patients to access through compassion clubs ultimately. And then there's also, of course, the challenge to the bylaws as well.
Okay, so we're on the right page.
Can I speak up as a patient? Okay. No. I've known Jack for years, and he knows my fight, if you want to call it that. I mean, to have the Canadian government say to us, it's okay for your doctor to prescribe this medicine, but you're only allowed to get it from this place, nowhere else, is a little bit much for me to even comprehend. I mean, I've got diabetes, I can hardly get around sometimes, and my brain don't function so well either. So when the Canadian government says, Al, you can go and get medicine and you can use cannabis any way you like, and then they say, oh, wait, no, you can't. I mean, it's putting myself into a very precarious position, Ira.
Sorry, who says you can't?
The government says I can't by telling me the only place I can fucking go now is an LP, Ira. Okay? And they're not even medical. That's who says who can't.
I don't understand that because there's lots of LPs, so I don't understand the question you're asking.
I don't feel that I should be having to go to an LP. I should be able to walk
grow your own
into
cannabis.
a store. That's right. But I should also be able to walk into a corner store and say, Can you help me decide what I need?
No.
Yes,
I don't agree with you.
Why?
Because you're allowed. Where I agree with you is that you have the ability to grow your own medicine and treat yourself.
But I don't have the
believe
means
somebody
or
who's
the place
uneducated
to do
has
that.
the ability to treat you.
I'm
I think
one
we
of
have
those
to put
that
our
don't have a place to do that, Ira. I'm stuck in the system
what?
to grow
Okay, you're
my
not.
own.
No. So you can't grow your own, but you have another way to access it that isn't a problem. Now, I believe you have the ability to treat yourself. I believe other people have the right to treat themselves. I don't believe, and I'm going to put my foot down and say that somebody who's standing on the street has the ability to treat you. They do not have the knowledge to treat you. They do not have the knowledge to treat somebody who's diabetic in a dispensary. They don't have that knowledge. You may have a little bit of that knowledge, but you walk in there.
No, hold on. That's not what I'm saying, Ira. It's got nothing to do with
No, you want to go buy your
cannabis.
cannabis.
I wanted to walk in. I want to be able to, it's legal in Canada. I want to be able to, recreational or medically, I want to be able to walk into a fucking store and buy what I want and leave. Put in $2, please.
Hold on. First, there's a difference between recreation and medical. If you're talking about you want to get high, you want to enjoy your life, you want to use recreational cannabis, I have no argument. Go for it. Walk into a corner store and get it.
Yeah.
You can do that in every province outside of Ontario pretty much. Yeah. And soon in Ontario, you'll be able to do that as well. I don't have an argument for that. You want to get high, go get high. You can do that. You want medicine, you want to use it as a medicine because it's treating something. You have to know what you're treating. The person who's treating, or the person you're going to, needs to understand the condition which it is treating.
But I have had.
You hear my argument, though.
I hear your argument. Now hear mine, please. I've had for 10 years my license, but my doctor doesn't know fuck all about treating me with cannabis. They're not like you, Ira. Okay? I have had to teach myself with the help of people like yourself and Jack with his books, because Jack's an amazing editor as well as an amazing lawyer. Okay?
He is,
I have been talking with patients for 12 years almost about this. I've lost so many people who could have benefited from just walking into a store, recreational store even, and buying their medicine because they know what they need. Okay, and so yes, medically, I need help to figure out what medicine I should use for things like diabetes and neural pain and things like that.
So,
go on.
But the argument that you're making to me is that you didn't have people. There are a lot of people now. I don't think the argument anymore. I think it was sustainable until 2000, probably even until 2 years ago, because up till 2 years ago, I was still. Maybe 3 years ago, there were very minimal amount of physicians who would prescribe it, or places to get educated, or physicians who understood your conditions. But there are lots and lots of physicians now.
There are lots now, but there's
now
no
maybe
education
not
centers.
maybe not in British Columbia or not in every other in other provinces, but certainly where you are, you have the potential to get treated very well with the use of medical cannabis for whatever disease ailment that you are suffering from. We don't have to go into that. So,
I agree
but
with
that doesn't mean you should be able to go into a corner store and ask a 19-year-old human who doesn't understand, your condition.
No,
I don't care how.
Hold
on. Let me take away age. I don't know why I used age.
I
apologize.
Somebody who knows what they're talking about, Ira, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but the OCS store, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, the OCS store is not allowed to advise you of anything cannabis related. They can't say, okay, well, I've had a patient. That's right. So there's nowhere that we can, there's nowhere that we can go medically other than the doctor's office, and Synergy right now is the only place to go for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate your confidence in Synergy and in myself. Medically speaking, if you're looking for medicine, then you usually go to a medical professional.
That's right.
And I think education over time, and even, as recreational cannabis, I'm not against recreational. I'm not a prohibitionist.
I know.
But I'm not a prohibitionist, and if you don't go to a store to buy alcohol and say I need it for medical purposes. Sometimes you maybe, prescribed it. We used to use it for an antidote.
That's why I don't have a problem with pharmacies like Shoppers Drug Mart and Pharma Plus controlling that part of it. I don't have an issue with that, because that's going to mean down the road that we're covered by our insurance. ODSP, I mean. Okay.
Now, the argument where Jack's argument makes sense is if you have a dispensary, for example, I look at something like MMJ that wants to stay in the medical.
And that's the model that I'm kind of talking about. Yeah.
They want to stay in the medical field, but they also have to commit to having educated medical professionals who are going to be able to help those who are looking for their medicine for medical purposes.
And I think they've tried.
Take that as hold on. They just haven't had Jack is really their only avenue to try to advocate for them. Yes. But it's a whole long process. I've seen Jack's fight for the last 5 years over these kinds of. So from that's a whole different model than recreational cannabis. What MMJ is trying to do is bridge that gap for medical dispensaries.
Yes. And there's even two. There's one dispensary in Hamilton right now that is still under an injunction. Correct, Jack?
Well, it's an injunction relating to the City of Hamilton bylaws.
Okay.
But so there still hasn't been a ruling on the constitutionality of the ACMPR, and it's from a court of inherent jurisdiction. But
hold on a sec, Jack. Is that true?
The ACMPR only. That's true. So the MMPR had a ruling, and that was Allard and Smith. Yes. But the ACMPR, there's been no fulsome ruling. So
he hasn't said a thing, has he?
Hold on a sec, Jack. Jack? Can I just ask you this? So the MMAR, we know with the Allard case it's the non-constitutional thing. So, but the ACMPR,
the MMPR.
Yeah, the MMPR. My bad. You're right. The MMPR was non-constitutional. That's the Allard case. So you're telling me there's a constitutional challenge on the ACMPR as well?
There's hundreds of them, but a ruling hasn't come forth as of yet.
So So people are still, even with legalization, those that fell under the MMAR are still under the injunction?
The Allard injunction, yes, still continues.
It still continues, so it didn't end. Oh, that's actually good to know. I thought it was I thought that with legalization that was going to change, but it has not changed.
The government would want you to think that.
I know, but hold on. So, Jack, you can tell. So it hasn't changed yet, and those. This is important information because we need to tell patients that. So those, and we have a lot of patients who are under the Allard injunction of the MMAR.
I am myself.
Those who are still part of the MMAR or self-growing, met all the criteria for the Allard case, should still continue to maintain or still fall under that injunction because there's no ruling yet on the ACMPR.
Hear, hear.
I'm here. That was more than a mouthful. So
I'm sorry. So let me make it simple. Those simplify. Those who fall under the MMAR Allard injunction are still held valid even under legalization today.
But the cops don't know that. They don't care because they only see invalid because it's expired.
Okay, but I'm just talking the law right now.
Okay.
The law is, as Jack just said, the answer is yes. So we need to educate our people that the injunction still holds valid.
Yes, so it's still in force. Okay,
that's really good to know. Well, that actually is really helpful. Jack, I really wanted to thank you. We're going to I'm going to connect Demetry and you and myself, and we're going to figure out how to get this funded so that we can take this challenge on.
Okay, very exciting. I'm excited to hear and learn more. I just I have to run now. So
yes,
this has been really fun to participate. Thank you for having me on. And
Thank
I
you
look
so
forward to
much.
hearing some more about all these interesting issues, and maybe we can, stick it to the government for these unfair laws,
Yes.
and reform the Criminal Records Act in a sensible way.
I agree.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Jack.
Always a
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
pleasure.
Jack.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
All right, guys. I think our time is up here. It's 4:30. Hey Al, we wanted to take a break. We didn't need it.
No, we didn't need it at all. No.
This was super enlightening. Honestly, people, if in just the last moments, I'll just take a moment to thank Demetry for coming and sharing his story, not only for yourself, but for the other veterans who are out there who are suffering, for the other people who've been wrongfully convicted, those who have been pardoned, and those who are trying to, make a life for themselves post-military. Yeah, go ahead.
And I actually want to wrap this up on my end as well by saying thank you to all of those in my friends, my community, the people that went above and beyond everything I ever could have expected, and had done so much to get me out. I am forever grateful for your support and your community activism. It just made me realize how truly connected I was to where I was, and I want to be back with you. Thank you again to all of you for all of you've done.
Thanks. I mean, I think that sums it up. If you want to get involved and help and donate to this amazing cause, well, let's just you can just email me directly at Synergy, I guess, Ira at synergyhealthservices.ca or Tyler at synergyhealthservices.ca, or connect through Instagram. I'm putting it all under Dr. IRA now instead of Synergy. So follow Dr._Ira.R.A. Ira _Ira, Dr. Ira, whatever the hell it is, Dr. Ira.
I'll put a link in the thing.
And we're gonna start. We're gonna figure out a way to fund this so that we can change these crazy laws. Thanks everybody for an awesome episode. Tyler, thank you.
Thank you.
Any last words? Anything happening at Synergy?
Right now, we're getting ready to start possibly doing some grow classes in the future that I'll be teaching with my partner, Cole.
Yep.
Those will be coming hopefully within the next month. And then more cooking classes coming in January, of course.
Love it. Perfect. So stay tuned. Stay in touch. We didn't swear all that much. And stay safe. Bye, everyone.
See you soon.
What are you doing?
Thank
Nothing?
you.
Why not?
Trying to get on this lifestyle radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.